Welsh.
Thank you, Cahirlach. Taoiseach Taoiseach Leo Varadkar Seanad the new, and indeed I do welcome your commitment to Seanad reform. But in case you haven't noticed, here on my left we have already elected a senator from the north, from the short strand. Oh yeah, congratulations! I'm really happy. I'm really happy for you.
Senator Joe O'Reilly's from the north.
But
just not far enough north here.
Yeah, tell them to allow me an extra minute now, Cahirlach. But I do welcome your intentions, and I take them as bona fide, because the previous Taoiseach, even though he was from my own county, obviously he went through the whole process of asking each of the parties to nominate a person onto the committee. I know from the Sinn Féin party I was nominated myself. And nothing ever happened after that. So I welcome the fact that you have a time limit put on this. I look forward to working with you. Obviously, the implementation of the Manning report is not the full reform that we need, but at least it will go some way to achieving what we need to achieve here. I take it in your speech as well what you said around, the reforms within politics itself. But I would say to you that still what's frustrating for me and for us is the lengthy process it takes to get legislation through this House. And I see everywhere where there are blocks put in bills, particularly bills from the opposition. And I suppose to name just two of those bills that I really would like to see going through much quicker would be the bill to facilitate the class action that's been put forward by my colleague Piers Doherty. I think you would see for yourself, even only in relation to the tracker mortgage situation that is likely to go to €1 billion as it stands now. It is really imperative that we get this legislation through quickly to save the impact that it's having on people's lives. The other bill I would say and ask you to get through as quickly as possible is the domestic violence bill. We were hoping to get that through before Christmas, but I know there were government amendments. But again, this is real legislation that makes a real difference to people's lives. I'm a bit dismayed when you say about transparency of lobbying and all of that, and while I welcome it, it is really shameful that we are in 2017, 2018, and we congratulate ourselves for the transparency that we should have had many years ago. That has cost this country dearly in terms of the corruption and the cronyism that has happened over the years. But Taoiseach, do you agree that the main focus of your office over the past number of months has mainly benefited Dublin and the major cities? And what I want to ask you is, how concerned are you about the recent report by the ESRI about the regional imbalance spelling trouble ahead, not just for rural Ireland, but for Dublin and other major cities as well? And do you now accept that the current model is flawed, and if it's allowed to continue, it will lead to further chaos in the cities and the continued dissemination of rural Ireland? Minister Owen Murphy is due to publish the National Planning Framework in the coming weeks. And again, Taoiseach, I would ask you, did you have sight of the draft of this important document before it went out to consultation? You talked earlier about scrutiny, but surely to God, even though that was at a draft stage, it should have been scrutinised before it was put to the people. Because, you see, you have to understand that notwithstanding the fact that it was a draft, it really shows contempt and disregard for people living west and northwest of the Seanad. And I would have to ask you, I mean, did your infamous and costly communications unit think this was good enough for us living in this region? When you became Taoiseach, you promised us that you would be a Taoiseach for people living in areas from Dungarvan to Dahoma. Well, this plan says something really different, and I hope that in the coming weeks before this plan is finalised, that you will take on board the submissions that have been made by all parties, and that it will be radically changed to address the serious problems in rural Ireland. because infrastructural funding must meet the needs of today's demand, but it also needs to disrupt the trends and create and anticipate future demand. You know that there must be a decoupling of the strict relationship between the infrastructural investment and the current demand. And you talked about a democratic revolution, but we certainly need a rural revolution, and we need it now. Taoiseach, until you see rural Ireland as being the solution to national problems, rather than a problem in itself, you're never going to create the environment whereby rural Ireland can fulfil its true potential. Now, broadband I have to talk about, obviously, not just because it's topical, but it remains a barrier to those who are seeking to set up or expand businesses. The slow and unreliable connection means that many people cannot confidently rely on regular access to the internet. And yesterday, again, we see the latest disappointment with the withdrawal of AIR, which came after the withdrawal of SERI before that. But I don't put all the blame on you, Taoiseach, because I know, and I was just returning from London at the time, when Fianna Fáil sold off our main telecommunications system in the country. Why, in the name of God, would you sell it off? Like, why? Could you not be forward-thinking enough at that time to say, hold on here? You know, did you not see that a French billionaire was going to end up being responsible for whether I can send a bloody email or not? And that is what it's come down to. You know, they have total control over the infrastructure now, even with AIR pulling out. They have ownership of the vital infrastructure that we needed. I cannot believe that the government that were in place at the time could not see this happening. You know, the whole mechanism of if it moves, privatise it, has failed this country. It has failed our past generation, it has failed our current generation, and it has failed our future generations. And I would ask you, Taoiseach, to really sit down and look at that model in relation to health and across the board, and look at the impact that it's having on rural Ireland. I want to ask you as well, Taoiseach, will you look at the situation around Keilsha? And, you know, to hear the CEO of Keilsha this morning saying that there was a disconnect between payments and what was committed to in the contractual obligations to farmers is just not on. But Taoiseach, unless you want to be remembered in rural Ireland as the trickle-down Taoiseach, I urge you to make major investment in the west and the northwest of the Shannon. A rising boat does not lift all tides. Carers will tell you that. People who are, parents who are looking after with children with disabilities will tell you that. The farmers, small farm families who are suffering poverty will tell you that. The hundreds of thousands on trolleys and on waiting lists will tell you that. And the people who are homeless will tell you that. So please do not rely on that to sort out the problems on rural Ireland. I have many more things I would like to say to you, Taoiseach, but my colleagues will ably do that here. I wish you well in the months ahead and in the confidence and supply agreement, which I think has failed this country. There's lots of confidence, but we have yet to see the supply. We certainly have yet to see the supply in rural Ireland, and your own rural TDs and senators will tell you that, because every day they're on the radio pretending that they're in opposition when they're in government, and they're there to be responsible. They are there to be there. Stand up and be responsible for your own government policies.
Senator Kelleher.